You are now watching Maine Wire TV with your host, Tom Shattuck, featuring Maine Wire Editor-in-Chief Steve Robinson and the indispensable John Featherston.
We are making history here in Bangor, Maine, and we're thrilled to be broadcasting here from the Hollywood Slots?
Hollywood Slots.
It sounds so close to what it should be. Hollywood Slots Hotel. It's lovely. Jack Gately joins us from Massachusetts. We're on the banks of the mighty Penobscot River. Jack, you know the significance of the Penobscot River in Fall Revere?
School me, Tom. Lear me good.
You know, Tom.
This is something new here.
So this is a sad day, guys. This is a sad day. Paul Revere was in charge of the Penobscot campaign in the Revolutionary War. He completely bollocks it up. The British beat him. He was accused of cowardice and incompetence and was sent to jail at Castle Island in Boston Harbor. Wow. Right out here.
This is a history guy. Maybe the greatest voiceover in the history of voiceovers yesterday.
That was all a copy.
Oh, it was pretty impressive.
Well, we'll have Jack Gately with us tomorrow. Right now he joins us from Massachusetts. We've got the big debate happening tomorrow. I've been doing all sorts of homework. I'm impressed with all candidates for all sorts of different reasons, but let's start today, before we get to debate stuff, with some breaking news.
Breaking news. I had a doctor's appointment early this morning, and my phone starts ringing and vibrating, and text messages are coming in. I got an alert saying that Homeland Security and/or ICE was at 256 Bartlett Street in Lewiston this morning. And 256 Bartlett Street is Mears in Lewiston, and we have video. The video will kind of explain for itself, but Homeland Security / ICE was definitely at the location this morning, and we'll let Tom hit that video and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
How cool.
Now you'll see the white Grand Cherokee Wagoneer is the auto that.
So here's the different angles. This is a little bit longer. We can kind of scrub through this, but there's the Wagoneer right there. It's pulling up.
In the Wagoneers at the feds?
No, the Wagoneer is the person that they arrest, the perp,
yes.
Which we are telling is a member of the Osman family. We have not been able to confirm through our sources with Homeland Security yet exactly what the person was, but if Graham plays that video, you will see that this is
so it's playing right now. So this is the black SUV behind the Wagoneer is one of the Homeland Security cars or ICE. And then they actually had 4 cars total. So they kind of had, this seems to be the primary pursuing vehicle. And then as soon as this interaction happens, other people pull up. So this kind of goes on for 6 minutes here. And we can skim through it a little bit, but it appears one agent goes up to the car with potentially an assault rifle of some sort. It is hard to tell from that angle, but some individuals who watched this closely thought that it was likely an assault rifle he had, and then they did make the apprehension.
Steve and I have ridden with ICE, so this played out textbook of how they did it. They followed the car into the lot. They put their car behind him. Then the other agents followed in a protecting pattern. It was textbook what they did. As you saw when the video first started, 2 of the agents went to the door at Mears. They found the door locked. They went back to the car. The person quite obviously refused to get out of the car at first. Then they brought more agents in, and then they finally made the arrest on the hood of the chase car. All
sorts of action. It makes me. Jack, it makes you realize just how these things can go sideways. Now, this didn't,
luckily.
But in a moment it could have. Somebody could have gotten nervous. Somebody could have fired off a shot. And, federal law enforcement in a year when they've taken so much bleep from Democrats and just people, Americans who should know better, makes you appreciate the tough job that these guys have.
Yeah, absolutely. And John caused quite a stir. John and I caused quite a stir at the mosque on Friday. People have been saying rumored Iman Osman. So when we say rumored, we're like, what, 95%?
Yeah. Yeah, but we haven't confirmed it with Homeland Security, but, you know, it's our job to make sure that we do. But, you know, we've been told by multiple sources it was a member of the Osman family.
Yeah.
And we're told that that's his car. So, yes. Yep.
And it's interesting. It just makes sense. You know, Jack, you're in Massachusetts, but John Featherston's been watching this place for months now. We've seen all sorts of action happen there. It's obviously a shady place. It's only a matter of time, you know, because what I'm finding with the Maine grifters, the same thing, and I'm not saying these are alleged grifters, whatever. The same thing with Minnesota is that a lot of these people who are part of this illegal activity are just very brazen. They're happy to be outside just doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, what I'm so impressed with, number one, is that you have this footage, which seems to be from a security camera at a business across the street, and it's just hours later, and the Maine Wire already has the footage. You know, nice job on your part. And when I look at that footage, it reminds me of an incident that occurred earlier this year in Massachusetts that has been on the front page of the papers here the last couple of days, where during a traffic stop like this, the suspect decided to pinball his car back and forth, and then the officer discharged his weapon in the belief that he and or his partner were under threat, and now that officer has now been charged with manslaughter. So when I watch this video, I'm so glad that we have the video. Nice job on your part for getting it. But here in Massachusetts, they won't let us see the body cam video, yet they're charging the officer based upon the body cam video, which in many other jurisdictions across the country, they do release within some period of time. But the prosecutor here is saying, nope, not going to release it until after the trial.
And these prosecutors, these activist prosecutors have been a problem all around the country. And you kind of thought that maybe we had hit the apex, but that story in Massachusetts is just maddening. The police union is obviously very upset. The cops are very upset. I mean, we're just making it seems to me that we're making a symbolic, fall guy out of this officer because the left needs another George Floyd moment or whatever they need. They need another thing to make the bright, shining light with which to continue their activism.
Hey, you know what? If the officer's completely unjustified, then that requires a prosecutorial response. And if that is the case, then release the video and show us how it was completely unjustified. Otherwise, show us the video where he's cleared. But most likely the video is going to show us that it could be this way, could be that way. And you can't second guess your officers in that situation. Very similar situation where the car was nose in, and just like you said, by procedure, the cops parked directly behind it, and this suspect reversed right into the cop car. Why don't we have a picture of the cop car? I mean, can't we even get that?
Yeah. Well, and, you know, that's one of the things that it's so maddening because a lot of times these cops are essentially condemned. And this happened with the George Floyd thing. You know, there's a whole bunch of body cam footage, but all the officers involved were left to hang out there for more than a year. And way too many times, you see this, Graham, way too many times, these guys are in the court of public opinion, prosecuted officers, and then a year later you see the rest of the story on body cam footage. I mean, there needs to be, Republicans, progressive, conservatives need to start backing up the cops so these guys don't have to hang out there and have their lives ruined.
Well, you know, they have a lot of support from the people, clearly. Many people out there do support the police officer, but it becomes such a optical win for like a CNN to have a Derek Chauvin out there that they're just going to run with it and they're going to start controlling the narrative before the facts have the opportunity to come out. So you're exactly right. It really requires a big grassroots effort to really show solidarity and support. But like we see it in the comments, everyone is saying, thank you, ICE. We support ICE. Walking around Portland, that is not the case on all the local businesses with the anti-ICE signs. It still amazes me how many local businesses have that up.
Yeah.
But like the ICE supporters are out there, but it's just clearly maybe not a vocal majority, but it could be a majority.
And to the people in the comments saying, hey, you stop saying rumored. Well, in this country, you're innocent until proven guilty. And we've reached out to all of our sources. And just keep in mind, there's a process here, because even, people detained by ICE and Homeland Security, they have rights too. There's an interview process, there's a booking process, and until that information, gets out there, we can only say it's rumor. But the fact that we have it all on video, like no other news outlet is.
I'm a firm believer, John, that in 2026 with media, it's better to present the facts as they come in. Information moves so quickly nowadays. It would be one thing if we said it was Iman Osman and it wasn't. Right. Like I said, we're like, maybe even 95-ish, there's a rough number percent on that. I think it's way better to put that information out and then clarify later if that's not actually the case, rather than to sit back and not give the public the information. Because this is a story that is dramatically and directly affects the people of Lewiston. But I think that's just the information world that we live in nowadays.
It's funny you say that, and that you had mentioned CNN. Because CNN studios all of a sudden now look more like where Jack Gately is. They had started to change the model to we're now all Rogan, we're all podcasters, and we're all now individual journalists doing our own editorial thing. But where is the media hustling? It's just an absolute fact that the big media in Massachusetts don't hustle like Jack Gately does. And the media up here in Maine, they don't hustle like the Maine Wire does. Why aren't there 7 satellite trucks in front of that Matt Moss right now?
Right, exactly. Yep, exactly. And we're the only news outlet doing it. And the footage speaks for itself. And here's the thing. When Steve and I are in Lewiston and Homeland Security shows up at Gateway Community Services, when the Homeland Security shows up at Mears, it has to tell the public this has been in the works for months. Gateway Community Services. When Homeland Security was at Gateway Community Services, they were there to serve a warrant and raid the place. The place was already locked up and everything, and just one man's opinion when I was standing there in the parking lot, they were disappointed that they weren't able to go in and do the raid. You don't bring 15 agents to serve a warrant. They were there to take out the place. So these investigations take months. It's a month of us on the ground reporting. It's not like we just stumble into these things. We find these things. It's a lot of hurry up and wait. It's a lot of fact checking. It's a lot of sources. There's a big presence of Homeland Security in Lewiston, and once there was another reported shooting last night. 4 gunshots were fired late, around 9:30 last night. We're being told. So there was a shooting Thursday, Friday, and Sunday in Lewiston. And Homeland Security is raiding the migrant services this morning on Bartlett Street. So, if you're not concerned in Lewiston, maybe you should be concerned. There's a lot going on in their city. So.
Yeah, John, we've talked a lot about how all the shootings ended during the ICE surge in Lewiston, and now they're coming back. One counterpoint people were saying is, it was cold, it was the winter, but it was miserable weather there last night. These shootings are still happening. So I think you can put that narrative to bed.
I would agree, yeah.
Hey, you know what I want to run by Jack as well, because this is a story that he had the other day. We've got a problem in Maine. Certain news outlets are recipients of state government largesse. And in Massachusetts, Jack has this on his timeline that the State House News Service got a cash injection as well. How do you scrutinize somebody who's giving you money, Jack?
Hey, it's even worse if you don't disclose it, right? So I'm not saying that taking the money it depends upon the scale of the money that you're taking and if you don't disclose it. So they don't disclose any of it. Was first reported by our news outlet, 24beacon.com, a week ago. Nobody knew about it. I was shocked. I had to run the numbers like 3 times before I was like, wow, I'm sitting on a big story here. I was actually started that story looking for money flowing the other way. And then I found it was flowing to the State House News Service. And for those of you who don't know, the State House News Service is kind of like a wholesale news operation. It's like the old-time Associated Press of the State House. It's the paper of record for the State House. Their content gets syndicated all over the state. So they set the tone. And they receive $600,000 a year in subscription money from the state government, and their largest subscribers are single subscribers, $60,000 a year, is from the legislature itself. But overall, the vast majority comes from the executive branch. So, Tom, I don't know how you report on that and stay objective, especially if you're not disclosing it in any way, shape, or form. It's as the kids say, it's cray-cray.
Sounds like the Bangor Daily News here in Janet Mills here in Maine. Yeah.
And that's how you do it, right? This with subscriptions. That way the money's clean, right? Because you're getting this service, and I need it for constituent services, Jack. It's plausibly deniable by all of these state hacks to say it's just a tool of the trade.
It's not campaign money. It's taxpayer money that they're sending to the State House News Service.
Yeah.
And does the Fish and Game Department, who should be stocking trout, do they need a $3,500 a year subscription to the State House News Service?
Amazing.
And why would it be $35,000 anyway? Like
$3,500.
That's just 35. Okay, 35.
They've also got unless things have changed, they have quite a nice State House bureau in the State House. Theirs was always the nicest one. I'm not sure if it's still that way.
Well, what they do in Maine, rather than the subscription policy, although they might be doing that too, is they do the advertisement campaign. So the public interest advertisement campaign. So like we've reported a lot on Bangor Daily News and the Portland Press Herald, but the Maine Public's got a bunch of them too, like 7,000 a pop to promote whatever dumb initiative that they want to promote from the government. 7,000. We're not talking about world-ending money here, which is probably why we haven't really gone after Maine Public in the same way we've gone after Bangor Daily News and Press Herald. Bangor Daily News got 2.4 million. And there was actually one article in the featured article in the Bangor Daily News that I couldn't help think of when I was thinking of the 2.4 million today, which is they said, and I tweeted this out, like national Republican groups surge money to Susan Collins to defend Susan Collins rather than to support or to endorse Susan Collins. They frame it as to defend Susan Collins, and if she's done something wrong, that these Republicans need to spend money to defend her on, which is not the case at all. There, I mean, she gets money from national groups like Graham Plattner does and like Janet Mills does. But when the Janet Mills campaign is basically funding the Portland Press Herald, you're going to see headlines like that, I think.
Getting back to John said, I have not been to Lewiston for decades. And I know, like, sometimes you're what is that phrase? The frog in the pot, you don't notice it's getting. So right. I'm going to have some culture shock when I go to Lewiston tomorrow because I'm driving through and I have not been in the pot. So it's going to be like my memory of a long time ago versus today. And it's like I'm going to go to those places, John. I have them on my little Google Maps. I'm stopping there just to see what this place is turned into. And I'm sure I'm going to be like, wow, are we in Maine?
You're going to be sadly disappointed, I think. And make sure you don't tell anybody you know me. So,
yeah, for real.
Well, it's amazing that it's happened in Massachusetts in a different way as well. But just these states have been transformed. You can't have multiple decades of progressive politics and not expect there to be rot. And that's what you're getting. And in Lewiston, in Portland, and I guess to a lesser extent maybe into Boston, it's been an experiment in progressivism. And the more blight that happens, and the more brutalism that's erected, and the more odd, murals for people who don't deserve murals, the more the left feels like they're doing what they should be doing. And if there are 11 people shot over the weekend, well, that's the price of doing business. It's like the progressivism is not results oriented; it's symbolism oriented. And so, who was it the other day when that debate? Troy Jackson was chiding an interlocutor saying, "Oh, you're saying there's so much crime in Lewiston. Oh, stop it! You can go outside here. And that's
you can.
Yeah,
you can't get shot.
Right. And they're telling us that what we're seeing is not really what we're seeing anymore, but we know it is. And eventually it comes to an end, which is why the progressive TA in Massachusetts was going after the cop. I kind of thought that the tide was beginning to recede, with this insanity, but maybe these are the last few death throes of radical progressivism. Who knows?
No.
Graham and I started our morning in
Election
Portland. Sorry,
year.
Jack.
Yeah, true.
But we started our morning in Portland. I picked up Graham in Portland this morning to come to Bangor, and I took him to City Hall because here's the thing. I went to City Hall today to advocate for the Cavalry Chapel because they're trying to cancel that event. You've got a city councilor in Portland, Wes Pelletier, who's trying to shut down that event and saying it's a hate type of event. So I went to advocate today for the Cavalry Chapel to the mayor and dropped off a business card, hoping to connect the mayor with the pastor from the church. Hopefully they can have a cup of coffee and kind of, talk this out, because I think it's just an important event that they're going to have. So I took Graham around and we went to a couple bus stations, but then more importantly, I took him to Preble Street and we walked up and down to Preble Street. How many needles did we see on the ground?
20.
At the very least.
But more than that, it's the trash. It's like you have a city council here and you have a city that cares so much about climate, or they say they care so much about climate change. You have a state that's doing all this stuff with wind and solar. It was like a landfill, that street. It was disgusting. And then you got to literally wash every step you take because there's needles everywhere.
There's needles
and you said it, John. You said it better than I could. It's like the city is giving up on that street. It's like they say, okay, whatever happens here happens. We don't care. We're gonna, clean up the nice waterway where
tourist areas,
tourist areas. But that street, we're just leaving to the wolves. That's really what it feels like. I mean, it's disgusting.
I took Graham by the substation. There is a police substation, a Portland police substation on Preble Street. Knocked on the door. I have a contact in there. Knocked on the door. Very friendly contact. Came out and I said, "Man, the place is trashed." And her response was what, Graham?
She was like, "Really?" Because I thought it was cleaner than I've ever seen it.
So I mean, we'll eventually release the footage, but I mean, it was really, really bad, and human despair. Less than a mile away from Portland City Hall, and in here you've got a city councilor trying to shut down a faith-based event rather than focusing on. You've got people dying on your streets. You've got people who need help in your street, and you're more concerned about turning a religious event into a hate type of event. It really shows you the woke agenda is not.
And you're right. It was 30-second drive from City Hall to there, and then Preble Street with their pride flags is right in the center of that.
Yeah.
And they're getting millions of dollars a year, and they're supposed to be working on solving that problem. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the worst of the problem is around Preble Street.
And the funny thing is, Jack, that a lot of these people are from Massachusetts. Every so often, Mayor Wu, tells everybody to skedaddle if there's a big event coming to town or a big convention, and these people head right up to Portland, Maine, because you get all sorts of bennies, safe injection site kind of things, and free syringes. You get 100 syringes at a pop. When you go to the health resource, they give you a bag of 100 syringes. So like every blue city, it's funny because it's not even funny, but because these people are the walking dead, and a lot of these people freeze to death. We saw this in Boston, see this in New York City, you see this in towns in Maine, is that there's a migration, and they go where all the best resources are. So really, it's Springfield, Mass, Boston, Mass, and Portland, Maine. And as winter becomes summer now, more people will head up to Portland, Maine. And you've got these entire civilizations of the walking dead, and people just waiting around to die or be harmed. And I don't know, it broke my heart even just 5 years ago in Boston, walking out of North Station and seeing these people on the grass next to North Station who were just catatonic, or through Boston Common, which is really, it's part of the Emerald Necklace. It's like the nucleus of beauty in Boston.
Yeah.
And you've got these zombified people in there.
It makes you want to wear.
Okay with it.
It makes you want to wear a T-shirt that says "Stop Communism" from the Maine Wire.
That's a stylish shirt. So I was trying to pull this up, and it's a little bit of a janky system. So we're going to do this the old-fashioned way here. But you said Massachusetts, Tom. That is for those who can't see this, is a beautiful matte black Cybertruck, and that is right in front of the mosque in Lewiston with the mass plates on that thing.
Very nice.
Yep.
But Debbie in the comments says, "How about Portland's Maine post office?" Well, I took Graham to Portland's Maine post office today, and what did you see, Graham? Utter despair.
Utter despair. Yeah, it's weird. The post office has become like a new homeless hangout spot. I guess they've migrated down the street a little bit. So, I mean, you just got to think, like, if you're just like a well-to-do person trying to ship mail, you had to deal with that. And we were taking a photo, and this lady comes basically running up to the car, flipping us off, being like, "What are you doing that for? What are you doing that for?" And I mean, we weren't even taking a photo of her. I was taking a photo of the trash on the ground, honestly. But she took it as if we were, and freaked out. And like, imagine if
the biggest human service agency is 1,200 feet away from that post office. Like, how they don't have staff out there every day trying to get these people. And granted, a lot of people refuse help and don't help, but
Tom,
I don't feel like I'm in America when I'm in these places.
You know, Gately had great video of a drug deal in Boston. Was that last year, Jack?
it was last year. I was at the Shake Shack, and it occurred. I was just looking out the window, and it was in the car that was parked illegally out front of Shake Shack. But I wanted to follow up with, because we had a story today at 24 Beacon about the MBTA advisory board. The executive director of the MBTA advisory board wanted to turn the Menino Convention Center into a partially homeless shelter because
good.
That'll work out fine.
It's our top. So Menino Convention Center and homeless shelter.
You've got to be kidding me. That's on 24 Beacon, because I'm going to
24beacon.com. The executive director of the MBTA advisory board wrote on a blog that is like the people that are all in terms of the bike lanes, those people. He wrote a guest spot there. And because unfortunately in December, we had somebody freeze to death outside of South Station when it was closed. And he's saying that South Station is an inadequate homeless shelter, which it is. But let me trust you. You don't want to go to the men's room there during the middle of the day if you don't have to. It's and
well, it is an inadequate homeless shelter because it's not a homeless shelter. Yeah,
bingo.
So also, that's the old convention center, right? The BCEC.
Well, it's the new convention center.
Yes,
and, you know, it's got probably a couple of hundred bathrooms. It's bathroom rich, and so this guy was saying it's so big we could have a homeless shelter there in the cold weather, and this would solve the problem.
This is a place for, ever since that place opened, they've been trying to make the Lawn on V a destination in Boston, and they've done a pretty good job. Every other Boston College co-ed has her picture on one of those swings on Instagram there, and talk about ruining a good thing. You know, the Seaport, to me, has been a bit of a success.
A huge success. I would agree.
It used to just be for dumping bodies 30 years ago, and now it's like it's a new city. Steve, who's the Boston comedian? Steve
Sweeney,
right?
No,
Sweeney.
Yeah, it calls it Dubai. yeah. But Stephen Wright is great answer, John.
Well, all the libs think the Seaport is going to be in the ocean in like 30 years.
Yeah.
That's a new thing. So,
But it's not going.
It's obviously not. But
mass and cats. You guys, if you don't know what mass and cats is, hopefully you never find out what mass and cats is. But
very
Jack,
similar to Preble Street. Kind of.
It's very. But Jack, can you describe what mass and cats is for the audience?
It's if you know the show The Wire, it's Hamsterdam. It's a legalized drug zone, is what it is. It's you talk about drug deals.
It's a caged area where you can go and kill yourself in Boston, and they'll give you needles and the fentanyl to do it with. It's like,
you're not gonna see. You don't have to be looking out the window of Shake Shack and accidentally see a drug deal. You can just stand on the corner and see them everywhere. But you got to be careful. When I go there, I ride a bicycle to get the footage so that I can get away if I have to tell you the truth. Not that the bicycle is faster than any bullet. It's not. But you don't want to be on your feet. You have to have some. It's a very dangerous. I've been there many times, and it's a dangerous place to make a video. Let me just put it that way.
The times that I've gone there to make a video, who gave me the biggest hard time there? Wasn't the drugs people. It was the police. Get out of here. Get out of here. I'm like, I'm standing on a sidewalk in, downtown Boston. I could think of it.
I
You
now
know,
have a camera that goes around my neck, and it's on a magnet, so it doesn't even look like I have a camera.
It's smart, actually.
It's very smart of you.
Yeah, you should get one of those, John.
Yeah,
Honestly.
yeah. Send me a link to that, Jack.
I'll bring it tomorrow.
Hey, but we've got some guests here in the ballroom here with us. Any questions, comments about Maine Wire?
Well, I'd like to know when there'll be some prosecutions for.
Great
Some of
question.
they, 22, I noticed today that's up to 22 that need shipped out of the country or, sent to jail. Hold a law that they're going to be falling back money. Good luck with that, but.
Yeah.
But anyway, when is it going to happen in Maine? That's what I'm.
That's
So if you couldn't hear that on the live show, we had a question. Basically, when are the prosecutions happening?
I point you to the Maine Wire. There will be no more gaming the system. Oz reacts to the latest MaineCare fraud scandal. CMS Administrator Dr. Mehmet Oz issued a pointed statement to the Maine Wire this week in response to reports that Paradise Residential Services, LLC, had become the latest multi-million-dollar MaineCare scandal to unfold under the Mills administration. The allegations coming out of Maine are deeply disturbing and underscore exactly what we've been warning about. Bad actors are exploiting gaps in oversight to game the Medicaid system, Oz said. When providers bill inflated rates while failing to deliver basic standards of care, it's not just fraud, it's a betrayal of vulnerable patients and families who depend on these services. Now, I think about 1/3 of Mainers are on Medicaid, which is amazing, and it should not be that way. And it's driving up the rest of everybody else to pay all the other costs for their health needs. I think that the feds, if Steve Robinson were here right now, he would tell you more cryptically, though still starkly, help is on the way.
Sure.
Scrape together and run. How do the kickbacks work from all these different first of all, they're taking money away from people that really need care.
Yeah.
And those people can't get the care.
Right.
We have a sister-in-law who has a child that needs, 24/7 care. They can't get care because all the money's being siphoned out of the state by these Somalis. And
So-
the Somalis kick it back to the politicians. I know how they get it to Somalia.
Yeah.
They get it to the politicians.
Yeah. So the question, in case you couldn't hear that on the live show, was basically how do the kickbacks work? How do the kickback works? How does the money go from the politicians to the migrant communities, the Somalis, back to the politicians? And I have an answer for that. I think it's more in the rather than money. I think it's more of a vote in terms of, or a kickback in terms of votes.
Keeping the
It's
power.
a voting block, but also these NGOs, these organizations, they when I first got into radio a long time ago, a guy said, I have one piece of advice for you: get near the money, stay near the money. In other words, be in marketing, be in not necessarily sales, but be near the money. So when money's going into the business, you're benefiting from it and you've got value. These people know how to be near the money. And a lot of these people act as agencies that bill for doing absolutely nothing. And they're just reimbursed with no scrutiny from the state government. It's amazingly easy grift.
I don't know.
But can I expand on that? I mean, it's just, this is my opinion. I'm not saying this is fact. This is John Featherson's opinion. When you look at what's going on in Maine, ICE talks to the Maine Wire. Homeland Security talks to the Maine Wire. Dr. Oz talks with Steve, sends statements to Steve. Janet Mills complains that she doesn't get this. The participation with the federal government that's trying to protect us is communicating with the Maine Wire. And we're getting it. I put out a video on Friday, that got some good views. Like, where's the outrage for Paradise Residential? And my video was, where's the outrage? Where's Governor Mills? Where are the Republicans? Where are the Democrats? Like, this is a huge story and on Dr. Oz's radar, and he will be coming to Maine, trust me. And Vice President Vance will be coming to Maine to clean up the fraud here. We have a huge problem in Maine, and only the feds seem like they're doing something about it. Like, Like,
Absolutely.
even if you're a gubernatorial candidate on the Democrat side, why aren't you calling this? Where's Dr. Shaw? Where's Shanna Bellows? Where's Hannah Pingree going, hey, they're stealing your tax money. But instead, they're protecting because they want to keep their power. That's what this real thing is. And I hope tomorrow night on the debate stage, the biggest thing we talk about, in my opinion, should be fraud.
I think it will be.
Yeah.
I mean, if one of them starts campaigning on it, then it starts to validate it for the Democrats, which would be a catastrophe for them. Because they've been, basically Mills has been operating under the pretense of there's nothing to see here, and this is Trump attacking his enemies, basically, using the pretense of fraud. So as soon as a Nirav Shah or a Shanna Bellows, she would never do it, but one of those people start campaigning on fraud, it validates. And the Democrats one thing they're very good at is keeping their members in line. You rarely, other than Fetterman, not Featherston, other than John Fetterman, you rarely see a Democrat step out, almost never. And it never happens in Maine.
You're 100% correct. You're 100% correct. But what people need to pay attention, if Dr. Oz calls back that $24 million in autism money, that's coming out of either the rainy day fund or we're cutting teachers and we're cutting police officers in Maine, because that money is going to come back to the federal government. And that is the tip of the iceberg. So when JD Vance and Dr. Oz come to Maine and start pulling back stuff that, we're pointing them in the right direction to and stuff like that, when they start doing that, that money's going to come out of the budget. They already have a budget shortfall in Maine. They already have a huge problem in Maine. Governor Mills wants to buy your vote with those $300 checks. She's not going to have the money to do this. And that's going to start, all politics is local. You're going to start laying off school teachers. You're going to start laying off cops and firefighters and DPW workers, because there is a huge fraud problem. And the Democrats can deny it. And you're 100% right, Graham, that, that would be owning the problem. But eventually, always the bill comes due, and the bill's going to come due very quickly.
And John, Jack Gailey, you'll meet Garrett Mason running for governor tomorrow. He's former state senator. He actually just did an interview with Steve Robinson, and he talked about when he won in 2010, the Democrats, the way they close ranks, they are vicious to each other. Everybody is loyal. If not, then he used to see Democrats routinely leave, the state house crying because they had been threatened, taken a corner. This is like the old school, Bulger discipline, but with a less kind hand. So, and it's just, I assume it's the same. It used to be the same in Massachusetts when I was, around the state house there. But these Democrats, they know how to close ranks, and they know how to never take their feet off the gas. They absolutely do.
There was one guy in Maine, Representative Bruce White, who opposed Janet Mills' full-term abortion bill a couple years ago. He was the only Democrat, and he was a reliable Democrat on every single issue, but he was like, this one is the bridge too far. He spoke out against it. Immediately, Planned Parenthood just pummeled him in the primary. They put so much money into just some random other person, and that sent a message. That sent a very clear message to every other Democrat, specifically on abortion, but I think it translates to every issue, is if you step out of line, it doesn't take that much money to win a primary race in rural Maine. A couple $1,000s for signs is a lot more than some of these other candidates have. And that sent a very clear message that if you step out of line, you will be primaried. And that has really resonated. And we've seen that over and over and over again ever since that happened.
100%.
For only 1.5 million people, it's crazy to me how crazy Maine is. You have we have 4 times as many people, but here in Massachusetts. But in terms of keeping people in line, we did get some good news today here in Massachusetts, in that our minority leader, and I do mean that in air quotes, is retiring. So he's been there as the Republican state representative for 32 years as a state representative. Brad Jones. He's been the minority leader for, I don't know, let's just call it 20 years or something. And this is when I worked there when I was in my early 20s, Brad and I were friends. We were aides together, and I got a life and moved on from the state house. And he's been institutionalized. He's like a character in Titicut Follies, literally. But he's going to, leave with a giant pension, and he's the controlled opposition. And we really only have a handful of actual Republicans in Massachusetts that are state representatives. 25 have an R next to their name, but there are a good number of them that are Brad Jones Republicans. And Brad Jones is in a Democrat district. They voted for Harris 6.5%. So it's possible that the Dems pick up that seat. But what's really the difference?
Yeah, and I know that it used to be that even though the Republicans, there was so little representation in Massachusetts, they still got all sorts of committee money. So it was the Democrats made a deal for them too. So it was, be the opposition, wink, wink. And so many of those guys just to go along, get along.
Brad once told me he had to pick and choose his battles. And I go, no, I disagree, Brad.
Yeah.
You don't pick and choose your battles. You're the minority party in the bluest of blue states. Why are you picking and choose your battles? You should be gripped to go to battle every single day. Because, why wouldn't you be? You're the minority party, and most of the state is not going to do it. So why wouldn't you fight every day? And I guess he had to protect his district because, the money does flow into his district. Because a state rep's job is to bring money back to your district. But I used to disagree vehemently with Brad. No, you need to fight. We need to fight every day.
Well, the king of the gazebos, he's gone. And, bringing back that gazebo money, the local aid money, he's gone. What I want to know is how the primaries work in Maine. From what I understand, it's like a jungle primary. And they have a question here in Massachusetts to do the same thing. Is that correct?
A ranked choice?
It's ranked choice, but are Republicans allowed to vote in the Democratic primary?
No.
Okay.
No.
But independents can choose which party they want.
Independents can choose a ballot, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, in Maine, yes. Yep.
We have a ballot question this fall, which would allow Democrat. It's not a primary anymore. It's a preliminary, and everyone can. It's only one preliminary, so there's not two preliminaries, and just the first and second winner go on to the final. So it's effectively like backdoor ranked choice voting.
So who is this from an outside group that came into the state? Are they doing this in multiple states, or is this an organic Massachusetts thing?
I think it seems like both, actually. Probably a lot of outside money, but they found some the far left likes it because it effectively makes, in a one-party state, it makes the preliminary basically a Democratic primary. And it'll be the end of the Republican Party altogether.
Hey, let me ask you something. Jack, did you know Michael Graham, who used to be on the radio in Massachusetts and now runs the New Hampshire Journal?
I did know Michael Graham. I actually never met Michael Graham in person, but I hosted his show one day when he was in Ireland.
Really? What was I there?
I think you were there. What's her name? Yeah. What's her name from Channel 7? I was awful. Michael had a call.
Oh, Kim.
She had the shift after the show. Kerrigan. And
Kerrigan, yes.
I was so awful that Michael had a call from Ireland to save me. But yes, I actually have never met Michael Graham in person, but we talk on the phone quite often. And I hosted a show one day. And that was the end of my radio career.
That was my job to make sure you weren't awful, Jack. I apologize for that. Hey, but the reason I bring it up is that Michael Graham suggests, and I wonder if this would work in Maine. Michael Graham suggests that all the Republicans should register as Democrats.
I think there's a lot to that. I do. I think there's a lot to that. Yep.
Well,
and just flood the zone.
Sorry, that's Rush Limbaugh's Operation Chaos.
Oh, is that Rush's? So then you flood the zone and you make sure that you nominate less crazy Democrats.
Well, are there any?
That's a valid question.
There's a few out there. They're afraid to tell their parents.
It seems like the candidates that are really breaking through on the Democrat side are the Graham Ponders of the world, the more progressive candidates who have now this Mom Donnie digital side where they're digital media savvy. It kind of seems like the more moderate Chuck Schumer-esque Democrats, if you can even call him a moderate anymore, are on the way out. So, I mean, I guess it maybe
Well-
we'll still see some of it, but it feels like that strategy would just kind of lead to, I think incumbents.
That's interesting, Graham. Do you think, Jack, that there's a difference between a run-of-the-mill Democrat and a Democrat socialist? Or is the party AOC?
The party
Grand
is
Theft.
AOC. I mean, trying to find a moderate Democrat is trying to find like a moderate leader in Iran.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the line of the show, so, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. You remember, 25 years ago, the debate with Democrats was essentially abortion and the size of government and the scope of government. It's not anymore. We are talking. They want a different form of government. Government-run free grocery stores. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Where can people get that kind of merch?
MaineWireMerch.com.
Yeah, when you said, is somebody going to go to jail? That's one of the reasons that people are so aggravated, because it seems like the citizenry is more angry and passionate than our elected representatives or the people who should be.
They're afraid they won't get.
Yeah, but if you're afraid you're not going to be reelected,
I know.
I look at political courage, and I know it's rare, but it's unbelievable that Paul LePage was governor of Maine, but he didn't give a bleep about conforming to niceties. So he said what he meant, even though any political consultant would say, no, you can't speak like that. You can't tell these kind of stories. There's a way you comport yourself. And that's how the losers have been doing it, comporting themselves nicely, and Republicans lose nicely.
Yeah.
But,
100%.
I mean, would you rather her or would you rather Janet Mills? Yeah, so I know, but I had it. Jack did a terrible day of radio in Massachusetts. I did a few terrible years in Connecticut, and it was always the same, is that the callers were angry that their Republicans at the State House weren't angry. And what they're saying is, like, voters want the representatives to bleed with them. And when they're not, it's just dispiriting. It's demoralizing.
And there are people in there, but there's too many of them that just don't get in the fight.
Yeah.
Afraid to get in the fight.
The Democrat populace is, for whatever reason, psychologically more prone to protest and to mobilize than
Yes.
a lot of the Republicans. I don't know the reason for that. And there's definitely an infrastructure behind it. There's a well-funded infrastructure, but there's also something psychologically that'll lead these people to spending a Friday afternoon on the overpass in Portland with the No Kings March 28th.
Yeah, they don't have a job.
Republicans just don't do that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Jack says I don't have a job, but that's a great point.
Take our flags and
Well,
we do that a lot.
Yeah,
you should send us some photos of that, because maybe you have
yeah,
somebody- Okay. Yeah, maybe we just got to do a better job of finding those and promoting it. But it seems like throughout, at least definitely in some of the big metropolises like Portland, you're like, I walked around Portland, I must have saw 50, 60 businesses with the no ice signs. You don't see many businesses with pro ice signs.
No.
People
the-
are afraid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in Massachusetts, there was about 20 years ago, there was a young female staff. When they do the budget, everybody gets drunk and stays out all night. And so about 20 years ago, a young female staffer was caught being amorous with a male staffer in the well of the Senate or whatever it was. Anyway, it was in the State House. And that young lady was essentially silenced and was transferred away. The guy, no problem. He was not disciplined. So anyway, if I'm telling this wrong, Jack, you can let me know. She thought it was BS. She thought there needs to be transparency, and we need to see what's happening in the State House, because there's all this old boys club stuff that happened, all these backroom deals. And she's not a state auditor. Her name is Diana Zoglio. And her mission in life appears to be wanting just transparency. She wants people, the American people, the Bay Staters, to see what happens in their state house. And they are doing everything they can to stop her. They've tried to destroy her before, and she's utterly tenacious. And Jack, do you ever have conversations with her? And how's it looking for her?
For re-election, extremely strong. I thought that the House Democrats or the Senate Democrats would come up with an opponent against her just out of spite, but that hasn't happened yet. But your recalling of the story is effectively true, and I can tell you that having worked at the State House for 5 years in the 90s, the alcohol party thing, we had a good time. Having said that, she basically broke the NDA. Good for her. And why they're so mad at her basically is because she disrespected the Bing is the way they kind of think about it. She broke the old boys club code. Yeah. And that's what they're really upset about.
Yeah.
Well, Jack, as you know, Karen Spilka, the Senate president, is a neighbor of mine. And I've known Karen for, 30 years, school committee. And when I was chair of the Board of Selectmen in Ashland, I did a lot of stuff. But when she was rising up to power as a state rep, and then eventually as a state senator, I don't know Karen Spilka anymore. And when I say I don't know her anymore, I don't recognize her anymore because power has corrupted Karen. There's no way 15 years ago Karen Spilka would have sat idly by and said, "Nope, the voters wanted an audit in the state. 72% of the voters wanted it." She would have been the first person out there banging, saying, the voters wanted it, we got to give it to her. And now that she is the Senate president, and like I said, I've known her for 30 years, consider her a friend. I don't even recognize her. Power corrupted her. Yeah.
That's what Jack was talking about with Brad Jones, essentially. Like after 2 terms in, man, you become the system.
You see that with a lot of Democrats. You can watch Obama, Hillary Clinton, whatever. You go back 10, 15 years, and they're the most radical Republicans of today.
Yeah, for sure.
We, it's funny because even 15 years ago, Catherine Clark was a very reasonable human being.
Yes. Yeah. Very
sort of breaking
yes.
news here. They're very funny.
Go ahead.
This happened 2 hours ago, but I'm just seeing it now. Graham Plattner abruptly cancels campaign fundraiser at New York City gay bar after a new Reddit post, including use of homophobic slurs.
Oh, no.
But then, he has been rumored to have an Asian friend.
Yeah. I think that might be a little bit more.
Wait a second.
There are rumors about
There's
that.
photos of this.
Oh, wait a second.
Okay.
Okay.
We actually shared this. Well, I'm surprised it didn't take
First of all, why would he cancel his appearance at the gay bar if he's...
Because he doesn't like criticism. He's used to going to these events with 700 people licking his toes.
Crazy.
Oh, so he thinks that they're going to turn on him.
It seems like, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But why is he campaigning at a New York City gay bar, too?
He was just in D.C., too. He's shaking people down. He's hot. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and, we have... Ted Cohen has written for us in our paper that you'd figure that while he's on his I'm Not a Rapist tour, that he would have his wife speak on his behalf, but she's nowhere to be found.
It's interesting.
Which is, I don't know if you saw any of that. Jack Graham Plattner is hot stuff up here. He's the newest AOC, obviously. And he had a troublesome Reddit existence. And one of the things he said is like women need to shut up about being raped and not get so drunk all the time. And just and so the governor gave him both barrels. She's now going after him. She's running for the same seat. And so he had a bunch of women speak on his behalf, including a rape victim.
And including Sophia Khalid.
Right. And which was bizarre because what he should have done is just get in front of the microphone and take bleep for an hour. But that's not what he did. He put the girls there.
Spoke for less than 90 seconds
at
the press conference.
But not his wife, and we don't know where his wife is.
I don't know. I think he should just transfer the fundraiser to the local tattoo parlor.
That's a totally different. The Nazi problem is another problem.
What about it?
Seems like he's got a lot of problems.
So this means that this is a Schumer thing, then, probably, right?
It could be. It could just be like Blue Sky doesn't like Graham Plattner. Funny enough, Facebook loves Graham Plattner. But Blue Sky is very anti-Graham Plattner, and that is probably the same crowd that goes to the gay bars. And of course, his one supporter is Andy O'Brien, who is concerningly concerned about defending Graham Platter's Nazi tattoo. That's all I'm going to say about that one. But I kind of like Andy O'Brien now. He's won me over by tweeting so crazy.
He gives us all sorts of potential.
This is a lot of content.
So, Jack, what else are you working on?
This story is getting some traction. It's now on Yahoo News. I'm seeing it on Facebook. So that's going to be an interesting story in the next couple of days. I'm really excited about the debate, up in Maine. I'm just astounded and impressed that the Maine Wire has pulled off a debate with all 8 candidates. And what I noticed recently is that your Republican convention is the same day in April as our Massachusetts Republican convention. But we're being told here in Massachusetts that it's way too early to have a debate with our 3 Republican candidates. Oh, we wouldn't want to debate right now because if somebody says something wrong, it will be used against them in November. So 2 out of our 3 GOP guys are like anytime, any place. But this one guy who no one knew beginning October 1st, that's when he announced, he's like, no, I'm not going to debate. So, but you guys are basically on the same calendar, and you've had more than one debate, and this guy just won't debate. I want to know if they're saying that they're going to use some soundbite. I want to know if he's soundbite prone. Is he prone to making mistakes? I want to know that.
I think a ride in a helicopter over this past week was a mistake. So yeah, I think he is prone to mistakes. Yes.
Well, we do have the debate tomorrow. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Jack.
Is he tone deaf? Because he's got a lot of money, but does he have the talent? And the same schedule as you folks, pre-convention debate. You guys are doing it tomorrow night. I'm going because I want to see how you guys pull this off. But I think it's an echo to Massachusetts. Like for those people who say, "Oh, it's way too early." No, it's not. Maine's doing it. Why can't we?
Yeah,
they've had multiple debates already too. So this will be the first time any 8 candidates are on the
first
stage.
one with all 8 candidates. First time Bobby Charles has been in a debate with the other Republican candidates. It's going to be a fantastic event. So we are at the Hollywood Slots right now, who are very generous in hosting us today. So we really appreciate them. But tomorrow, the main event, right across the street here at the Cross Center. All 8 candidates, like we said, it should be a slobber knocker of a debate. I think I'm really looking forward to it.
What do you think the most noise is going to be between? Who needs to knock who off?
Well, it's going to be. It reminds me of a lesser extent to why Trump never debated all the other Republican candidates in the primary this time around. It's because Bobby Charles appears to be the clear front runner. Maybe not clear. Maybe clear is a little, but he appears to be the front runner. So it could be a potential situation where you have all these candidates going after Bobby Charles, trying to knock him down a peg.
A friend in politics, get a dog, because you're going to go up the polls. You got to attack the front runner.
We've seen some tension between David Jones and Garrett Mason before, so maybe that could continue in tonight. Generally speaking, most of the Republican candidates have been fairly jovial with each other. But I think if there is tension, it's going to be people going after Bobby. And I think it's Bobby's job to kind of focus on the mission, focus on the platform, focus on the policy and his vision for Maine. And if they want to squabble at him, maybe it's a good strategy to kind of rise above that and keep focused on his vision for Maine. Maybe it's better for him to go after them and get in the butt a little bit. I'm not sure. But if there is action, I think that's where we're going to see it.
Yeah. I did find stylistically both Bush and Mason I know that Bush he touts bringing 1,000 jobs to Maine, big businessman, innovative thinker, healthcare pioneer, and all that stuff. Both he and Mason feel like to me that they can give this a very, very similar TED talk. So I would think that they would want to have some separation. So maybe there's something there. There can only be one of those guys if that's what the state is in the mood for. But yeah, no,
Well, Bush is the only one talking about shrinking government in the US so far. Bush has been very active about talking about fraud and shrinking government. So that adds an interesting piece.
Yeah, and then also I will say for some of the candidates that are maybe polling a little bit lower, this is a huge opportunity for them because this is going to be the biggest, the most watched political event so far of the season. And you have a guy like Robert Wessels who maybe doesn't have the funding for some of these commercials. Well, he's going to get a chance to be in front of a lot of people tomorrow. So and same with someone like Owen McCarthy's, it's their chance to really step up and knock it out of the park.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why it's a tragedy, Jack, for you, that nobody is debating. The Republicans won't debate Massachusetts because if anybody's going to beat Maura Healey, somebody needs to catch fire in an unbelievable fashion, and nobody can catch fire if nobody's seeing anybody.
If Keneally and Shortsleeve are smart, and they both are in Massachusetts, they have the debate without McNoll. Just have it without him. Have a picture of an empty chair there. Wasn't afraid. It didn't have the courage to show up. So that's the best optic you could ever get. Yeah.
They had a conversation with Dan Ray on WBZ Radio not long ago, so that was good. But imagine if what it would mean for the Republican Party, not only at the top of the ticket, but all the way down the ticket, and the organizing oomph of the message that a three-way debate creates, and the type of event that you're creating in Maine tomorrow night. Like, imagine how good that is for the party as a whole, for the conservative movement as a whole, to have everyone show up. You have 8, we have 3, but to have everyone show up and have it be like, we're going to feature our ideals. You pick whatever one of these guys you like, but our ideals are front and center on this news cycle. And we need that in Massachusetts. Maura Healey is running circles around these guys. They don't exist in the local television cycle at all. And they buy the Mr. Minogue buys TV ads, but you really need free TV to make a dent. And she's getting boatloads of it, and our guys aren't at all. Even Mr. Minogue, who could buy it.
But Jack, why aren't people using the gift that I gave them? The Healey hotels. Why is it? It's $4 billion with a B, $1 billion worth of waste and fraud. Why aren't the candidates embracing that? It is a question. Because
very simple answer, John. We didn't need an amnesty bill. We just needed a new president. He closed the border, and now the Healey hotels have also been effectively closed.
But $4 billion was spent in the process, though.
Great talking point. True. But you could almost track the closing of the Healey hotels to the rise in Maura Healey's polling numbers. Donald 100%. Trump, the irony is Donald Trump has been the best thing for Healey's polling numbers ever. He closed the border and bailed out Maura Healey. That's the truth.
Saved her ass is what he did. Saved her ass, yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to have Jack Gately with us tomorrow night. Go to 24beacon.com. Check out what Jack is up to, or you can go to jackgately.com as well and follow him on X at John F. Gately. Jack, we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Beers on John.
Yep.
And anything that people need to know about tomorrow.
Pre-game show starts at 6 p.m. Debate starts at 7. It's going to be a great pre-game show. I think it's going to be worth tuning into because there's a lot more than just us talking. All the candidates are sending in hype videos. So essentially the way we're doing it with the debate, instead of a traditional opening statement, we had the candidates basically film a 1.5 to 2 minute long, not a commercial, but a sizzle reel for themselves, a pitch for themselves. So we'll be playing each of those videos on the pregame show, reacting to those, and then we'll have the debate, and then we'll have the postgame show. We'll have John work in the spin room. We've got a great trumpeter doing the national anthem. I think that's an underrated. And breaking a couple days ago, Rick Tyler will be doing the stage announcing. So Rick Tyler is our Michael Buffer for the evening, the golden voice of Maine Talk Radio. So that'll be electric. Walking up, he'll be introducing all the candidates and getting them out on the stage with the introduction they deserve. So 6 p.m. pregame show. Tune in for that. 7 p.m. debate. Debate will go around to 9, maybe a little bit earlier than that. And then we'll have the postgame show and wrap it up.
By the way, somebody did ask if you now had protection for yourself.
Well, we'll release that tomorrow. But things. I'm safer today than I was on Friday. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Here we go. And that's just a sword, which is in in the radius of where we are right now.
The sword has caused quite the stir among some of the Maine Wire haters.
Don't believe everything you see on the internet, folks, because what you're seeing on the internet is not believable. And Graham was there; he can tell you.
I kind of set John up to look bad by accident. Maybe don't look bad. I actually think you look great in that. But
Hey, Jack.
Nobody was taunted.
Jack, what's at 24 Beacon Street in Boston?
The State House.
Oh, is it really? Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
The Golden Dome.
Okay.
and everyone in the chat saying they're going to be there tomorrow. Definitely come by and say hi to us. We'll be around.
Hey, can I give a shout out to the fans in the crowd? We've got the best fans here at the Maine Wire. Like during a live broadcast of the Maine Wire, a person was grateful enough to give us, tips. And the Maine Wire, we get a lot of our news from tips from our fans. Tips at themainewire.com. If you ever got a tip out there, trust me, we get a lot of them. Sometimes it takes a while to get through them, but we've got the best fans. I just got a really great tip here, so it means a lot to us that people see our show and bring stuff to us. So I mean, it's just great. And, we really have to thank our fan base the most because we couldn't do any of this if we didn't have the great fan base that we have at the Maine Wire. So
Here. All right. For Jack Gately, for Graham Pollard, for John Featherston, and my name is Tom Shattuck. We'll see you here. I guess maybe we'll check in tomorrow one way or another.
Yeah, Maine Wire. It's
Right.
4 o'clock. Yeah.
There's a lot of content on the social media feed. So I guess before we go live, I should say we're all hands on deck here for the debate. So there might be less like traditional news coming out from the Maine Wire tomorrow. But we're going to be filling the social media with just general behind the scenes content for the debate. Other stuff around the candidates when they get there for the debate. So there's going to be a lot of good stuff. It might just not be the more traditional news side, but I think people are going to enjoy it. Actually, I'm excited for tomorrow.
Very much looking forward to it. All right. That's it for us for Maine Wire TV.